welcome back to Crafting with Claus. Thank you for joining me as we count down those days until Christmas with a different craft and project every single day of our Advent here. Speaking of Advents, let's go ahead and get our snowflake from the 5th to the 6th. Oh my goodness, we're at the end of the row. We're getting so close to Christmas and I can't wait. So, you may think by these little ornaments up here that we're going to be making gingerbread men today, but that's not the case. They're not really edible at all. These are salt dough ornaments made out of a special dough you make from just 3 simple ingredients, and I'm going to show you how to do that, and then we'll get some tips in on how to do different things with the salt dough once it's made. So the first thing you're going to need is just some all-purpose flour, some salt, and water. And that's it. And if you forget that or you want the measurements and you don't want to write them down right now, that's okay. I'll make sure that I put them on the comment section of the YouTube channel and also on my Facebook page. You'll be able to see what you need on there. So you can check out either one of those. So the first thing that we're going to do is add 2 cups of flour. Now, I like to do something called the dip level pour method. That's where you use a butter knife and you scrape off the flour from the back and you level it, and then you go ahead and pour it into your bowl. So we'll be using 2 cups of flour. And then the next thing we'll need is 1 cup of salt. So we're going to go ahead and pour our salts in here. Okay. You want to be sure and stir that up really well. Mix in the salt and the flour and get all of the edges and make sure it's really well mixed. And then the last thing we need is water. Now what we're going to do is, it calls for equal amounts of salt and water. So 2 cups of flour, 1 cup of salt, and that would mean 1 cup of water. But I would not add the whole cup. You're going to stir it first with a spoon and, wait until it gets mostly added in, and then see how much more water you actually need. If it gets too sticky, you can also add just a little bit more flour. And if it's really dry and crumbly, you want to add just a skosh more water. So let's go ahead and pour some water into this. Okay, and then we'll stir and stir. You can see it's mixing together, but it's also getting kind of a little bit dry on the sides there, so maybe we'll add just a little bit more water. And then once you've got it mostly mixed, then you can go ahead and mix it with your hands. Go ahead and get that mixed in until you see a nice ball forming that, again, not too sticky, not too dry. It's just perfect. And these are good practice skills for learning to make bread, which is an art that I absolutely love to do. My dad loved to make bread also, so it's kind of a family tradition a little bit. Okay, and then you can see that we have our nice little, not too little, but our nice little ball of dough here. All right, so let me clear this stuff away and get out the next set of tools because it's a small table, and I'll show you what we do next. So give me just a second. Okay, so the first thing we want to do is just sprinkle a little bit of flour onto here. Now, if you have a rolling pin, that's great. If you don't have a rolling pin, you can use your hands. You can even take a cup and sort of roll it out. Like, it will be easier if you used a glass. This one has little ridges in it, so you don't want to use something with ridges, but a flat glass or something, and just roll it on top of there, and it'll get that flattened out. But that's the first thing that we're going to do, is flatten out our dough. So I like to give it a couple of little squishes to get it started, and then make sure we've got some flour on there so our rolling pin doesn't stick to it. And then we're just going to roll it out. And you want to roll it in different directions. And you want to push down a little bit, but not too hard. Oops, and if that sticks, that's okay. Then what we're going to do is just add a little bit more flour to the top of that. So get some flour on there and rub it on, and that'll help keep this from sticking. Okay. Oh, this is what you do when you make cookies also, but this, if you were to take a taste of it or lick your finger, you'd see how very, very salty it is. All right, and you want to get this to approximately 1/8 of an inch thick. Doesn't mean you need to get out a ruler. You just want to make sure that it's nice and thin, and that way they don't crack when they get up in the oven, because they will crack a little bit. And you do need to bake these in order for them to harden. I have here the gingerbread cookie cutter that I got, and it came with a little one, which is great for the little leftover parts. And all you do is take your cookie cutter and push it down. Now I like to give it a little wiggle to make sure that it cuts through completely, and then you want to lift it straight up. Okay, press down, give it a little wiggle, and straight up. And I also had this, if you don't have any cookie cutters, then you know, you can be really inventive with things. So if you were to get a cup and do the same thing, press down and give it a couple of little twists. And then in the center, as centered as you can get, go ahead and push that down again and give it a couple of little twists. Now it looks like you've made a donut, but you actually can make a wreath out of that. So let's make another one of those. After we've done that, then we can pick up our dough. So you just kind of grab it and very carefully peel around the things that you've cut out. And then you just set your dough aside. So then we're going to take our baking dish and a spatula and very carefully pry underneath these. Go ahead and peel them up as carefully as possible. Here we go. And then set it on the baking dish. And then what we can do is straighten it out a little bit. And if his legs got a little bit mushed, we can straighten them back out and just kind of tap them on top. Now we're going to bake these at 325 degrees. You don't need to put any oil or anything on your baking tray. Now these are going to cook for about an hour, so you want to make sure that they're nice and hard and completely cooked, but you don't want them to start getting too brown or anything. And have an adult help you with getting the oven turned on and getting these things ready. And again, you know, if they get a little bit messy, don't worry about it, because you can gently fix them with your finger once you get it onto your baking tray. All right, so these are just plain and flat right now. And one of my little, which one? This little gingerbread man, and I've already painted these. This guy, all I did was poke a hole in the top with a pen cap actually, and that way I can run a ribbon through it and hang it up if I choose to. But this one is just like the one on here. It's got no extra addeds except for the paint. Now this guy, I went ahead and made little extra pieces out of some of the spare dough, and I'll show you that in a moment, and then I painted them afterwards. So I gave them bumpy buttons and eyes, and then I used the frosting and made it kind of bumpy too, just for fun. Now this one I did the opposite just to show you, and I used that same pen cap, and instead of making things bumpy, I poked in. So I poked in the eyes, and then I poked in the smile, and I poked in a little bit on the where the frosting goes, and then the buttons are poked in also. And then I went ahead and just painted a red bow. Now you could paint, you could also add things like a ribbon bow if you wanted to, or beads if you thought that would be fun. So, you know, you need to make these as individual as you want to, so that they're as fun as you want to make them. All right, this is where you use your creativity. And I like to say there are no mistakes. There are only creative opportunities. So let me show you one of the key things to, making these kinds of added parts to it, and even if you're going to make a bow for your wreath out of the salt dough clay, you want to do what's called a snake, and that's where you just take a piece and you roll it and roll it, and you keep rolling it. I'm going to take some of that off of there until it's as thin as you want it to be, and you want to try to make it as even as possible. You want to roll back and forth so it doesn't get all twisty, and if it gets thin in one place, you can just fold it and squeeze it and then roll some more. That's the nice thing about this kind of dough. All right, and once I've got this thin, then what I can do is break a piece off and then fold it up like a bow and put it on one of my wreaths. Okay, and then I can also take little extra pieces here and make a mouth. And I can make little balls out of the dough and roll them up and make buttons. And I can also put little ornaments or berries onto my wreath as well. Oh, this is so fun. All kinds of stuff. Okay. How's that coming? You feeling good about that? Oh, me too. And these are going to be so fun. Now, you can paint these. The best thing to use to paint them is acrylic paints. You have to be really careful with acrylic paints because while it'll wash off your hands pretty well and it washes off of your dishes, it doesn't do washing off so well on carpet or clothing. You've got to be, unless you do it right when it's wet. So make sure you get an adult's help and some adult supervision on, using acrylic paint. But if you try to use watercolor or something, it'll probably just make this a doughy mess again. So you want to make sure that, you're using the acrylic paints. I'm going to set this stuff aside because I want to show you another little secret trick about working with salt dough. Now, if you make your pieces too big and too thick, then they will crack, and I don't know if you can see right here, but there's a crack on the side of it. I rolled these a little bit thicker than the 1/8 of an inch just to see how they would do. That guy didn't crack at all. This one has a little crack in it right here and one down by his foot. So say you wanted to do something like make a snowman. Make me want to sing that silly "Do you want to build a snowman" song. But if you were to try and just make a big ball and put it in the oven like this, then you can pretty much be guaranteed that it's going to end up with cracks all over it. So here's the secret. You take a little bit of aluminum foil, and I'm going to tear this in half. And then I'm going to tear this in half. And then one more piece in half. Okay. And then I'm going to make a ball out of this. And then I will grab some of the dough, kind of flatten it out a little bit, and wrap it around that tinfoil ball. We called it tinfoil in the old days. Nowadays it's aluminum. It used to be made out of tin. So some of us seasoned folks still call it tinfoil, even though it's called aluminum foil nowadays. Okay. And that way, when you cook this, it will not only be, it doesn't use as much dough, but it'll bake around the aluminum foil and it won't crack as easily. And also, I think it probably helps it by heating it up in the middle. Now, if you're going to make a snowman, you want it a little bit flat on the bottom, so be sure and squish that. Now, we're going to take the next biggest piece, and we're going to do the same thing. We're going to take a little bit of dough, squish it out. And when you get done doing this, you may want to put some lotion on your hands. I know this salt really dries my hands out. All right. Now, another little secret you can use when you're trying to get, say your dough gets a little bit dry and it doesn't really want to stick together for you. Well, one of the things that you can do is before you connect pieces, you You can take just a drip of water and set it on there if your dough is a little bit dry, and that will help it sort of mold together a little bit if you add just a skosh of water. So just a drip. You don't want to make it all gooey, but that's fine with the, you know, if any parts that you're adding that don't really connect well, you can do that. All right, and last but not least, and you can see this is building up a little snowman. And then again, you know, you can paint it, or you don't have to paint it if you don't want to. You can decorate it with, you know, adornments that you made with felt or paper, or that you bought from the store, or make some more out of the dough. You're going to have plenty of dough left. This is the 2 cup, you know, 2 cups of flour with 1 cup of water. And then you want to be very careful when you get that onto your pan and then get it into the oven. Now the other thing you could do is, oh, they're stuck together, but you could definitely bake these little parts separately and then go ahead and glue them with a good tacky glue or your hot glue gun afterwards, and then paint them if you want to paint them. So glue them first and then paint them. So you've got a couple of options there depending on if you're using a toaster oven. You know, Mr. Stacked Up Snowman might not quite fit in a toaster oven on a tray, so you'd want to make sure that you've got plenty of space there. All right, well, and then, like I said, you can find the paints. I found them for as inexpensively as 50 cents each, and they come in little, you know, containers like this, and you just need a paintbrush, and you paint on however you want to. So I need to go wash my hands, but thank you so much for joining me today. I hope you enjoyed making salt dough ornaments with me. And I will see you tomorrow. We will do another craft to help count down those days until the 25th. Thanks. Bye-bye.